I think one of the best parts of Providence Place is the peace you feel when you walk in. And they do have a lot of things going on here. Puzzle table, card games, outings. It's really been a great place for me. I'm glad I'm here.
Call today.
Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
I'm Nick Morganelli. I'll take you to Calvary Cemetery in Holyoke, where many volunteers have come together to begin a new program to refurbish veteran headstones just in time for Veterans Day.
Steve Kiltonick will have an update on a church bell in Nagasaki, Japan, as it is restored to a church that had been destroyed by the atomic bomb during World War II. And we begin a month-long series following along with the Catholic Communications Jubilee Year Pilgrimage to Italy. These stories and more are just ahead on Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome to Reel on this first weekend of November. As Veterans Day approaches, coming up on November 11th, volunteers in Holyoke have come together to restore military headstones with a new program through the Veterans Services Office. Nick Morganelli takes us to Calvary Cemetery and introduces us to the honorable work being done there.
Here in Holyoke, where veterans seek assistance, they are greeted by volunteers, one of which is Wayne Klinge, a Navy veteran who's been helping with data entry for years, but recently said yes to leading the initiative to manage restoration of veterans' gravestones.
If you've ever washed dishes, and I think everybody has, it's labor. You spray them, you put a solution on them and rub it down, and then you rinse them off and do that. And if they need a little repair, that may take a little bit longer, but it's basically just straightforward elbow grease.
Do you have a tape measure on your pocket?
The equipment for the program was paid for with Holyoke Community Preservation Act funds. Wayne recruited Michael Washer, an office volunteer, to jumpstart the program.
And when the grave cleaning started, I wanted to be completely involved, and so we take pictures of the beginning of cleaning the stone, and then afterwards.
The pictures complement the deceased veterans database they've been digitally transferring.
We took training on how to do minor repairs and cleaning and raising stones. When we first started, there were only 2 or 3 of us out there at the events, but the last event we had over 15 people there, and it's growing.
Another Veterans Services volunteer is Roberta Kraus.
My job today is I'm going around, I'm trying to find the veterans' name plaque that's in the ground. I'm not looking for headstones, just the ones in the ground that somebody has cleaned in the past couple of weeks. But they're sunken in like 2, 4, 5 inches. They're deep. So I'm going to mark them with the flag.
This October Saturday is Joseph Romero's first day helping out. He is Roberta's grandson and heard her speaking about the work at a family gathering, and it piqued his interest.
She said she was volunteering here. I said, oh, that sounds interesting. I decided I can toss a Saturday in.
He'd never really done volunteer work, and this is the type of work that he wanted to do.
However, the schedule was a challenge for the college student. His grandmother explains.
He says, I sleep till noon on Saturday. And, well, that's okay. If you can't come this time, fine. And then yesterday he sent me a text. He said, hey, Graham, I'll be there. I'll be at your house at 9:30.
My pa served in the military for upwards, I think a bit more than 20 years. So, yeah, it feels like I'm at least helping them out a little bit.
All of these stones are the same size.
We have to dig down, and we have to go down about 1.5 feet.
After getting pointers on what to do, Joseph got right to work.
Most of the plaques here have already been cleaned, so just really raising it, leveling it, stamping everything down for the most part.
American flags are placed on the veteran headstones every year on Memorial Day. So after the stone is raised and cleaned, the last step is to replace Old Glory.
We've gotten to where I believe we're at about 100 graves at Calvary that we've looked at and raised the plaques and cleaned them up so far this year.
I'm honored to do it, and I'm thrilled to be able to have a worthy cause like this to do volunteer work. And I'm really pleased that my grandson's doing it with me.
It's just really a heartwarming to look at a stone that has been buried to where you can't even read it, and then you bring it up and you clean it up, and a name is visible and his service and his dates. It's an amazing thing.
I love this kind of work. It's a volunteer, but it's the most humbling job I've ever done in my entire life. It really, when you read the stories and the information about each veteran, and then when you actually come out here and see the stones and everything, it's a real, it makes me choke up a little bit.
If you have a heart to honor our deceased veterans, their surviving families, and descendants, this volunteer opportunity awaits. Honoring our veterans in Holyoke, for Reel to Reel, I'm Nick Morganelli.
If you'd like to be involved in future projects that honor our veterans and military community, you can contact Wayne Kling at 413-322-5630. St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield hosted a Polish Day last Saturday, as those of Polish descent were invited to a special Mass and luncheon, celebrating their heritage with prayer, song, costumes, and food, honoring Polish saints during this Jubilee Year of Hope. Nearly 200 people came to St. Michael's Cathedral for a special Mass celebrating Polish culture, an opportunity for many to visit one of the diocesan Jubilee Year sites.
Many people, even today, many of them said, we've never been to the cathedral before.
An icon of Our Lady of Częstochowa, known as the Black Madonna, was featured in a procession along with children dressed in traditional Polish costumes. Maya Merrick and her sister Mila and cousin Natalia Doyle are keeping their family's Polish customs alive. Their roots are in Krakow, Poland.
All of our vests were handmade, the skirts. I know that this one specifically was made by my great-grandmother. And like it was just very, very big to show our heritage and our appreciation.
And even though they might not speak fluent Polish, Natalia says she and her cousins enjoy their heritage.
Like, we have a lot of fun doing the things and listening to the Polish speaking because it's actually very nice and peaceful.
Mm-hmm. And do you know any Polish words?
I don't know that many, but they're kind of random words.
And what Polish words do you know?
Tak, nie, and kłamcie.
And what do those mean?
No, yes, and I love you.
Dominika Jaszyńska of Chicopee was crowned Miss Polish Massachusetts in August. Born in Poland, she came to the U.S. with her family when she was 2 years old.
I think attending these Polish events keeps me close to my roots and keeps me proud of my heritage.
Father Michał Czyżewski, a native of Poland who serves at St. Stanislaus Parish in Manhattan, delivered the homily. He says 3 Polish saints have inspired him throughout his life, leading with St. John Paul II.
I know that I'm here because of John Paul II. My vacation was started when when he visited Poland, when he touched the young people, when he preached.
The Pauline Father says he prays the Chaplet of Divine Mercy through the inspiration of another Polish saint, Faustina Kowalska. And he has a special place in his heart for St. Maximilian Kolbe, who died in the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II. Father Michal's own grandfather and great-grandfather also were in Auschwitz just a few months before Maximilian Kolbe. His grandfather died after 131 days there, and his great-grandfather was transferred to Mauthausen in Austria, where he too later died.
We have the letters when a grand-grandfather sent to our grand-grandmother Eve. And in this letter, he mentioned, "Don't forget about me." And for me, this is a beautiful testimony that I like to spread this message when I am. Because, for me, in my memory, in my heart, grandparents still alive.
Springfield Bishop William Byrne, who is Irish, was a little Polish for the day, even donning a red baseball cap with a Polish eagle for the occasion.
Those who have Polish heritage is an important part. The Polish have been an important part of the history of this diocese, and the communities are so rich and vibrant that it's wonderful to bring all of them together. I go to St. Stan's, I go to Holy Trinity, I go to the parishes, but for us all to come together as one family of faith is a great gift to me and to the whole diocese.
Following the Mass, people gathered in the Bishop Marshall Center for a true Polish lunch, including pierogi, kielbasa, and kapusta, and Polish meat patties from Bernat's Polish Deli in Chicopee. The entire lunch was generously sponsored by the Polish National Credit Union.
All the parts of the Polish life are just are reflections of God, you know, and I think it's so important for us to celebrate that. So in the context of the Jubilee year, this was a great way to do it, to bring people together, and it's just a huge success.
That was such a wonderful celebration of traditional Polish Catholic customs. And the next heritage to be celebrated will be the Vietnamese Day on Sunday, November 23rd at 2 p.m. in the cathedral, and all are invited to attend. And still to come on Reel to Reel, Steve Kiltonick brings us an update on the Nagasaki Bell and a college professor's mission to restore it in the Japanese Catholic Church that was destroyed by the atomic bomb during World War II. And we begin part one of our series highlighting the July Catholic Communications Jubilee Year pilgrimage to Italy. It's all still ahead on Reel to Reel.
Like Catholic TV on Facebook. Once you're there, you can join in on discussions, make friends with other Catholic TV fans, watch behind-the-scenes videos from the studio,
just finished this
see 1, 2, 2, and stay up to date with the Catholic world. All this at facebook.com/CatholicTV.
Last December, Reel to Reel brought you the story of the Nagasaki Bell and a college professor's mission to restore a bell in a Japanese Catholic church that was destroyed by the atomic bomb. The segment ended while Jim Nolan was in the process of raising funds to make the project a reality. Steve Kiltonick spoke with Nolan about the project's successful conclusion this past summer.
In part one of the Nagasaki Bell project, Jim Nolan, a sociology professor at Williams College and a parishioner of Saints Patrick and Raphael Parish in Williamstown, was on a mission to raise funds to replace a bell that once rang in a tower of the Urakami Cathedral in Nagasaki, Japan, the largest in East Asia. The church and bell were destroyed by the atomic bomb that fell August 9, 1945, killing some 75,000 of the city's inhabitants, including an estimated 8,500 of the city's 12,000 Catholics. Before the bomb, the Urakami Cathedral had twin Angelus bell towers. The bell on the left was destroyed, but the right bell was recovered nearly intact. The surviving bell was placed in the right tower after the cathedral was rebuilt in 1959 and still rings today. What remains of the bell is in a museum next to the cathedral. The left tower has remained empty and silent since 1945, that is, until this summer. During a trip to Nagasaki in 2023, while conducting research for a book on the persecuted Catholics, Nolan spoke with a 72-year-old Urakami parishioner named Kojiro Moriuchi. Moriuchi, whose father survived the atomic blast, is a direct descendant to the hidden Christians who were persecuted in Japan for 250 years. Urakami, a suburban village of Nagasaki, was the center of the hidden Christian community. The movie Silence depicts the suffering Christians endured when Jesuit priests were exiled or executed. Moriuchi suggested to Nolan that it would be wonderful if American Catholics, as a goodwill gesture, gave a left bell to the Japanese as a replacement for the bell that was destroyed. His wish was to hear the new bell ringing again in his lifetime. Nolan thought that was a wonderful idea and was inspired to make Moriuchi's dream a reality.
After that visit, I began just exploring, well, what would this involve, looking at various foundries, doing some research on the original bell because we wanted to make it as much like the original bell as possible.
Nolan then wrote a letter to Archbishop Peter Nakamura of Nagasaki, explaining his proposition and goal to install it before the 80th anniversary of the bombing on August 9, 2025.
We told the Archbishop that we would pay for everything. So we would pay for the bell, the transportation, and the installation. And based on our various estimates, it became clear that the whole thing would cost about $125,000.
In the spring of 2024, Nolan began fundraising, inviting people to contribute to the project through the St. Kateri Institute. Nolan gave talks on the Nagasaki Catholics and the bell in various churches and universities across the country, from Boston to Seattle to Los Alamos, New Mexico, where the bomb was built.
It was a wonderful experience to see the way in which the story of the Nagasaki Catholics moved people.
The new bell weighs 750 pounds, roughly the same size and shape as the original, which was given to the Nagasaki Catholics by the French and features the image of Saint Martin of Tours, a French saint.
This was coming from Americans, so we thought it fitting to have an American saint. So the saint that is emblazoned on the bell that was given is St. Kateri Tekakwitha.
St. Kateri, the Lily of the Mohawks, is the first Native American saint who was persecuted by her own people in much the same way the Japanese Catholics were. Nolan reached his goal of $125,000 in March 2025 with donations from 628 Catholics. The bell was cast in the Netherlands and managed by St. Louis foundry, the McShane Bell Company. The bell was finished in February 2025. In May, it traveled from St. Louis to Nagasaki, and in June was put on display in a small museum next to the Irakami Cathedral with the original broken bell.
During that week, nearly 7,000 people came to look at the bell. People were very moved by it, and you saw some of these Catholic sisters actually praying in front of it in tears and seeing the symbolic significance of this gift from American Catholics to the Nagasaki Catholics.
The installation of the bell, named the St. Kateri Bell of Hope, took place on July 17th, when a crane lifted the bell into place in the second tower.
That's significant because that's feast day for St. Kateri in Canada. And St. Kateri died in Canada, and she at the time was living in St. Francis Xavier Village. And St. Francis Xavier, of course, is the Jesuit missionary who first brought the gospel to Japan back in 1549.
Nolan and Moriuchi spoke at the installation ceremony and rang the bell together.
He was absolutely overjoyed. Yeah, he goes, I can't even express my gratitude.
23 days later,
and then it rang out for the first time at 11:02 on August 9th, exactly 80 years from when it was destroyed by the atom bomb. What made me most glad was to see the joy in Moriuchi-san and in the other Urakami parishioners, to see their joy and their gratitude and their appreciation.
でのことで、今このプロジェクトを進めているんではなくて、本当にそのカトリックっていう同じ一つの宗教の中で同じ神様を信じている人たちがその傷ついている自分の兄弟をやっぱりそのね助けてあげたいっていう。
Nolan said when Americans were asked about the bomb and Irakami's suffering, they offered two responses.
One was sorrow for what had happened, regret, a sense of empathy and this sort of thing, learning about the suffering. And then the second is respect, and that is an admiration for the Urakami Catholics and what they endured in the aftermath of the bomb, but then also what they endured for centuries of persecution and suffering.
Nolan hopes the Nagasaki Bell will ultimately help to heal old wounds between Japanese and Americans.
The response was one of seeing it as a kind of gesture of reconciliation, of solidarity between American and Japanese Catholics, of a kind of, healing and joy in the receiving of a gift like this.
The Nagasaki Bell Project made it possible for Kojiro Moriuchi to hear the bell ring again. His dream is for the Irakami Cathedral to become a pilgrimage site where people come from around the world to hear the St. Kateri Bell of Peace ring across Nagasaki. For Real to Real, I'm Steve Kiltonic.
Congratulations to Nolan for his dedication and determination to reach his goal to facilitate the healing between two nations that were once enemies. And finally today, back in July, Father Gary Daly, rector of St. Michael's Cathedral in Springfield, led an 11-day Catholic communications pilgrimage to Italy. During that time, pilgrims from the Diocese of Springfield were treated to the many cultural, culinary, and religious experiences that Italy has to offer. In part one of our series now, the group begins their journey in the picturesque town of Assisi, where they walk in the footsteps of St. Francis, St. Clare, and modern-day St. Carlo Acutis. With many stops along the way, the first part of the journey concludes in Lanciano, where the Catholic Church witnessed its first Eucharistic miracle in 750 AD.
Making it safely across the Atlantic Ocean, we arrive at Fiumicino Airport in Italy to begin our 12-day pilgrimage. Well, we made it to Rome. We board our coach bus and travel 3 hours north to Assisi. Hallowed be thy name. The town of Assisi, with a population of about 28,000, is in the Perugia province, Umbria region in central Italy. It is on a spur of Monte Subasio at an elevation of 1,300 feet. The town has narrow, winding streets and is surrounded by medieval walls. It became part of the Papal States in the 16th century, became part of the Italian Kingdom in 1860. The town's most notable landmark is the Basilica of St. Francis, which was begun in 1228, just after St. Francis's canonization, and was completed in 1253. The two-story basilica consists of an upper church and a lower church. The crypt in the lower church was added in 1818, when the tomb of St. Francis was opened. It is here, at the altar of his tomb, that we celebrate our first Mass of our pilgrimage. The basilica is one of the greatest repositories of early Renaissance frescoes in Italy. The upper church has frescoes representing the life of St. Francis and others depicting scenes of the Old and New Testaments. Earthquakes on September 26, 1997, seriously damaged the basilica, collapsing several vaulted ceilings of the upper church and destroying frescoes. Assisi is also the birthplace of St. Clare, a disciple of St. Francis and the founder of the religious order known as the Poor Clares. The Basilica of St. Clare contains her tomb with her incorrupt body. This basilica contains the San Damiano crucifix from which Jesus told St. Francis to rebuild his church. I confess to Almighty God and to you, my brothers and sisters, that I have greatly sinned in my thoughts and in my words, in what I have done and what I have failed to do, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. Therefore I ask Blessed Mary, ever Virgin, all the angels and saints, and you, my brothers and sisters, to pray for me to the Lord our God. We're here now in the lower part of Assisi, where St. Francis spent the majority of his life. And here we're standing in front of the Basilica of St. Mary of the Angels. This basilica is the 7th largest Christian church. The building of this basilica started in 1569 and continued until 1667. And inside the Grand Basilica under the dome is the Porziuncola Chapel, which dates back to the 10th or 11th century and was given to St. Francis by the Benedictines, and is important because it was here that the Franciscan order was born. The other important chapel is the Chapel of the Transition, where St. Francis died on October 4th, 1226. In 1832, an earthquake caused the collapse of the central nave and part of the lateral nave. The facade was originally remodeled in the neoclassical style until 1928, when it was again redesigned in neo-Baroque style. But one of the deeply impactful visits of the day was to the Church of St. Mary Major in Assisi, which contains the remains of then blessed, but now St. Carlo Acutis, who died at the age of 15 in 2006. This is a place of pilgrimage for many young people. The next day after breakfast, we board the bus to make our 5-hour trek alongside the Adriatic Sea to San Giovanni Rotondo. On the way, we make 2 special stops. First, we make a brief stop to visit the Holy House of Loreto. Loreto is a charming hill town of some 10,000 inhabitants. This has been an important pilgrimage destination for nearly 8 centuries. The Holy House is enclosed with ornate Renaissance-era marble beneath a large basilica, also built during the Renaissance. The house itself consists of 3 walls of stacked stones. It is believed that Mary grew up and the Annunciation took place within these walls. Tradition tells us that this house of Mary was transported from Nazareth by the holy angels. The house is now used as a chapel. Toward the front is a stone altar known as the Altar of the Apostles. Along with an ancient plate, these relics arrived in Loreto together with the Holy House. Our next stop is in the town of Lanciano, a town of about 34,000 residents in the Abruzzo region of Italy alongside the beautiful Adriatic Sea. This town has been made famous by the first recorded Eucharistic miracle. Our group had the privilege of not only viewing the Eucharistic miracle in the sacred monstrance, but having Mass right alongside it. This is one of the oldest Eucharistic miracles in the history of the Church. There have been many since then. I would say 150 Eucharistic miracles, and Blessed Carlo Acutis had researched them all. That was really his thing. That's what he did on his computer, and he compiled all the lists of the Eucharistic miracles throughout the world. The miracle took place in the year 750, when a Basilian monk was celebrating the Holy Mass. He doubted his faith in the Eucharist. While celebrating Mass, the bread and wine transformed into actual human flesh and blood. Those in attendance spread the news throughout the monastery and surrounding area. And shortly after, the blood in the chalice coagulated into 5 globules, which onlookers connected to the 5 wounds of Jesus. More than 1,200 years after this miracle, in 1970, Pope Paul VI commissioned a series of studies of the miraculous host of Lanciano. Doctors of human anatomy and histology performed separate investigations, which corroborated each other's findings. Further studies were taken up by the World Health Organization in 1973 and again in 1981, both of which confirmed the findings and discovered even more information. The results are truly stunning. The flesh has the same structure as heart tissue and the membrane of tissue lining cardiac cavities. The flesh was also discovered as being fresh, with no trace of preservatives. The globules of blood were also of human origin and determined to be of blood type AB. Further, while blood taken from a cadaver would deteriorate quickly, these samples continue to maintain the same properties of fresh blood. So what you see is what has been there for 1,300 years. And it's subject to light. You see it, there's light shining on it. People taking pictures. That has not changed. So Jesus is truly present here.
And we look forward to traveling virtually along with the pilgrims throughout the next few weeks. Next week, the pilgrims travel to San Giovanni Rotondo to venerate St. Padre Pio, as well as St. Michael's Cave and Monte Sant'Angelo, along with the famous Benedictine Monastery and Monte Cassino. And that's our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us. All of the latest news of the Catholic Church here in Western Massachusetts and around the world can be found at iobserve.org. We are also on Facebook, so follow us there at Catholic Communications. And I will see you at this same time again next week for another edition of Real to Real, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Real to Real is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.